Hi friends, welcome to this latest episode of the Nationalist View, and today we have with us a very special guest, Mr. Siddhant Hira. Siddhant ji, welcome to the show, and thank you so much for taking time out from your busy schedule. Siddhant ji is a senior research associate with the prestigious think tank called NatStrat, and he has done his post graduation in national security from King's College London. He is a regular contributor to various national and international platforms in terms of writings, as well as he shares his deep insights. Siddhantji, one of the key areas which Siddhant tracks is China. And today we are going to talk about China with Siddhantji. Siddhantji, there's been a lot of talk about TikTok. So my first question to you, Siddhantji, is that we have seen that there's a lot of conversation around this Chinese app called TikTok. India had banned it earlier. Now US is insisting that the ownership of this TikTok should be transferred to the American companies, and that is one of the key issues of negotiation between US and China in the ongoing trade deal. So, how do you look at this? Why TikTok is so important? And can you explain a little bit about the Chinese about the Chinese apps, how they are a threat to the national security of other countries?
Right. So, as you've firstly, sir, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure and an honor, and it's a great opportunity to discuss China, discuss TikTok, especially in context of the US-China tariff wars that's ongoing. So, China's policy, specifically President Xi Jinping, is to use any and all means to essentially control his population. And this impact is also felt worldwide because Chinese diaspora is also there worldwide. So it starts, one point of reference can be taken from 2015 and 2017 when the national security law and national intelligence law were established. This is essentially a legal framework which requires all state, non-state actors, individuals, and groups to cooperate with the Chinese Communist Party on anything that is national security. So they've kept that term very vague and broad so that they can include anything and everything. Along with this, you also have the 2017 cybersecurity law and the 2021 data security law, which essentially says that all data that's operated, utilized by Chinese companies or in China is the ownership of the state. Now, this, if you add the 2023 counter espionage law, it basically states that any documents, data, materials, items related to national security and interests are state secrets, as well as unauthorized acquisition, sharing, or mishandling of these materials. So, the reason why I bring up all these various legislations is because that is the context in which everything in terms of cybersecurity, data, and therefore Chinese apps like TikTok, all of the context, all of this is happening right now, and why the world is so concerned. Now, the thing is that when it comes to China, there are many there are many applications, but TikTok specifically has been banned by a number of countries, starting with India actually. India was the first to permanently ban TikTok in 2020. Now, in 2018, Indonesia had temporarily banned TikTok, and therefore we cannot consider Indonesia to be the first country to ban TikTok. But after India banned TikTok in 2020, Uzbekistan, Afghanistan, Jordan, Kyrgyzstan, Nepal, US, Somalia, Albania, Europe, as well as a lot of other Western countries banned TikTok. Today, China is trying to prevent the US from gaining ownership of TikTok. That is the main issue in the US China tariff deal. And President Trump spoke to President Xi Jinping sometime yesterday on this very point. So basically, President Trump has told President Xi Jinping that the future of TikTok's US operations will be continuing. There is no issue there, although there is no confirmation from China. So that essentially says that both sides have not agreed, or at least there is some debate ongoing in China because there is no approval yet from Beijing. Now, why is TikTok a major concern, a major challenge for not just the US, not just India, but the entire world? Is because it enjoys great popularity. It still has a lot of active users, especially the youth. And anything today that is data, that is information, is a tool, is a weapon for any state. And China is essentially mining this information, understanding each user's individual habits, and is then utilizing its AI, its technology, its algorithms to target specific individuals. Now, this might seem like it's not nothing too major, too significant, but when each individual across societies, across countries, across the world is targeted, essentially, China is controlling or trying to control and influence entire countries. And that is one major challenge on the softer security side of things. In this sort of, it's sort of an influence operation targeting the individual's mind. So,
Siddhanji, I want to take this discussion forward and let's basically widen the scope of this discussion and include some other Chinese apps also. I want to know whether Chinese apps, it's just data mining or is it used for surveillance also?
so that's a very good question because when it comes to Chinese applications, including games, the first step of the Chinese state is just pure basic surveillance, collecting information. But what reports say and other experts have found out is that China is attempting to control its own strategic narrative in games through chat features by actually blocking phrases like Tiananmen, Free Taiwan, Xi Jinping, even Winnie the Pooh. Now, this is happening because what China realized is that chat rooms in games were being used to discuss all these issues, which China does not want to be discussed. And why were they being discussed in these chat rooms? Is because China has a lot of control in other parts of the digital domain. So they started monitoring and blocking uh, games and applications. On the other hand, they have also been purchasing ownership of major Western gaming companies for this very same purpose. It is only when a state has ownership of, for instance, in this example, a software company which produces the game, can you incorporate all these repressive tools of control. If the ownership is Western, you have to go through the international legal system or on a bilateral basis, which no country will want to even entertain that request. Hence, it is not just surveillance, but China is essentially uh, blocking. the narrative against it, which it does not like. And in December 2024, actually, the game Marvel Rivals has a streamer who personally verified that Free Taiwan, Dalai Lama, Tiananmen Square, Free Hong Kong, and similar such phrases were blocked by the Chinese game in question. But on the other hand, if you were sharing conspiracy theories about 9/11, China did not bother about it since it didn't concern China.
Siddhanji, I also want to know, Indian government had banned around 200 Chinese apps, including, TikTok. Uh, and if I remember correctly, that happened after the Galwan incident. So, how do you look at, but later on we came to know, there were a lot of Chinese apps that were still active. So
Hmm.
how do you look at the the availability of Chinese apps in the Indian digital ecosystem? So is it still a major threat, or have we banned most of them? And what is your advice that how we can be more careful about using the app? Or as you rightly mentioned that they bought a lot of Western companies. So how do we come to know? If you can tell our viewers that whether we are using a Chinese app or not. Is there a way to find out?
Sure. So I'll start with a bit of data and timelines. India originally banned TikTok in June 2020, along with about 59, 60 applications. And then later in the year, September 2020, about 118 were banned. 2 years later, February 2022, 54 were banned. So a total of about 320 Chinese origin applications are banned in the Indian market. Some of the major ones, popular ones are TikTok, WeChat, Cam Scanner, PUBG, and a few more like this. Now, the reason why this was banned is because METI, India's Ministry of Information Technology, and our Home Ministry received a lot of complaints about data theft and privacy issues. So that is essentially why India banned all of these apps. So, and the data theft and privacy violation is actually just a surface level issue. The greater issue is as to who is using these applications. Around the same time, government also banned Chinese applications infrastructure from its critical sectors. And if you're a serving government or military officer, you cannot have any Chinese phone as well. So that is the more strategic challenge that India is facing from Chinese apps. Now, coming to how how India can get to know about these inimical actions usage through these apps, or what steps India can take. So, in terms of awareness, it has started from the top. You understand. So, as I mentioned, about 320 Chinese apps have been banned. I don't know the numbers, but I'm sure there are hundreds and thousands of Chinese applications. You can't ban everything in the digital domain. So that's definitely not possible. Therefore, what can you do? What you can do is what you've already done so far, ban the most dangerous ones, simultaneously increase awareness among the users who download these apps. They should read the terms and conditions, permissions very carefully so that the user is aware of what they are giving up on in that sense. So that's one small step. Larger steps like not having any Chinese infrastructure, applications, telecom in your critical sectors is ongoing. Now, the thing is that India is still economically dependent on Chinese imports, especially in the electronics and telecommunications sector. So, I would say that the best way forward is that that dependence cannot be overturned overnight or even within a week, a month, or maybe even in a year. Therefore, you continue to take the more strictest safeguards, continue using the Chinese software, etc., for now, because that is what you have. But simultaneously, do your indigenous R&D and do it fast and at scale so that you can, as soon as possible, switch over to your own systems. Because end of the day, in today's day and age, there is a concept of data sovereignty, and each country is basically developing its own internet, its own applications, its own AI models and LLMs. So that is the only way forward.
Siddhanji, my last question is, do you see any global trend in terms of banning Chinese apps? Is there a global trend? Is there a synergy? Do you expect what India did? So many other countries, of course, they have also followed the suit. But do you see an emerging global trend of, but you say, beware of Chinese apps or don't use Chinese apps, and how rest of the world is responding to it, especially
Right,
the developed countries?
right. So I would say that firstly, it is extremely, I think it's impossible to have zero dependence, zero in non-dependence on Chinese applications. That's, I honestly feel, is impossible because the Chinese systems have permeated from the smallest to the most largest crucial sectors. What can be done, which is happening, is that governments have banned Chinese applications. And this trend actually India started. And as of this year, a lot of the Western countries, UK, Canada, Australia, Belgium, France, Taiwan, New Zealand, and a few others have banned TikTok, banned Chinese applications on government and work devices. That is as of 2025. And between the time India was the first to ban TikTok to 2025, about maybe nearly 15, 20 countries have imposed either nationwide bans or temporary bans on TikTok and other Chinese applications. So that trend has started and it will continue. But at the same time, with respect to the Western world banning Chinese applications, for them it's easier because they already have more advanced safeguards, better alternatives. The challenge is for the global south. There's a lot of, as well as, which includes Africa, there's a lot of dependence on Chinese applications because for them, whichever is the cheapest with not too much terms and conditions, they will take it up. That's always a reasonable justification. Hence, I would say that Western world is managing. There is a lot of Chinese digital penetration, of course, but I am more concerned about the global south, especially if you look at the BRI and the digital aspect which emerges out of the BRI's influence in the global south. So,
So, Siddhanji, thank you so much for sharing your deep insights. We'll continue to track China and other issues on geopolitics, and we expect Siddhanji to be back soon on our show and share his insights on various other aspects of, especially because he specializes in the asymmetrical warfare also. So, we'll have more conversations with Siddhanji. Siddhanji, thank you so much again for taking time out from your busy schedule and sharing your thoughts with us. Thank you so much. And to our
thank you so much,
thank you and
Arun.
to our subscribers and to our viewers. So please, if you like the video, share it and subscribe to the channel. And Siddhanji, thank you once again. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Arun sir. It's been a pleasure and honor with some most insightful questions that you've raised.
Thank you.